In today's macro photography tutorial, we're taking a look at how you can use light, and particularly colored light, to create some really cool abstract shots using some coiled wire, stuff that you might have at home. Stick around and I'll explain more in just a sec. Hi guys, I'm Ben from Adaptalux and welcome back to another macro photography tutorial where today we're exploring some little things that have been sat on my desk for a little while now, and once again, I've said it before, I've never really paid attention to these particular things, and that is firstly the coiled wire that plugs into my keyboard, but also the coiled wire that sits on my old school telephone just here. Both of these things have been sat on my desk for a while. I was just looking at them the other day thinking, I wonder if those would make some really cool macro shots. And I've played around already and I can tell you that they really do come out looking really, really cool. I'm sure you've seen one of them in the thumbnail, but we're going to be using some colored light using the Adaptalux Studio to shine light through all of these individual coils, pick up on some of the texture on this one in particular. It's got a nice sort of braided feel to it. The other one's a little bit more smooth, but they're both nice white wires, so they're going to react with our light really nicely, and hopefully we can get some light shining through some of these coils. I'm going to show you my setup and then we can get started shooting. So first of all, just a closer look at what we're actually shooting today. Although this nice rotary dial telephone is really nice looking, I'm actually only interested in the coiled wires today. I think these are going to make for some really interesting abstract shots. I've also got a little black background here. This is a reflective black piece of perspex, so that might make for some nice reflections and a good way to take out any extra light in the background of my shots. I'm going to be holding these wires in place using my macro subject holder just here, which is a nice bit of kit that just has some crocodile clips on the ends of each of these arms, and it's really easy to place these wires into several crocodile clips and position them around in different ways to bend these coils out. So that's going to be really, really handy for holding everything in position while I shoot. Speaking of holding everything in position, I'm going to be shooting on a tripod today. This is a macro focus rail here in the middle of the tripod and the camera, and I'm going to be doing some focus stacking. So this bit here is really important. It just means that I can move my camera forward and back through my shot. It's a Sony a7 III on the camera, and on the front here we've got a reverse lens setup. So this is going to get me really, really close and hopefully get me a view down the inside of these coils, but certainly a nice close-up view of the outside as well. If you want more information on how to reverse a cheap lens like this, it's a really cost-effective way to get a lot of magnification. Now, last but not least, we're going to need some lighting. So we've got the Adaptalux Studio here. I've got the Control Pod 3 sat on a mini tripod here, but I've also got some Pod Minis as well, which might come in handy if I just need a single light source. You can clip them to the table here, and it just gives me a little bit of extra flexibility on where to place my lighting arms, because I can put these just about anywhere. And into all of these go our lighting arms, and I've got a huge variety of different colors of lighting arms. So here's a nice green light that I think will look really nice shining down both the inside and the outside of the coil. But we've got all of those colors in lighting arms, of course, but we've also got these color filters as well if we need a nice, softer, more diffused look. I find though with abstract stuff like this, the diffusion tends to be optional. I'm going to set up a shot here, and let's take a closer look at our lighting and how our coils react. So as you can see here, I've placed my coiled wire into my macro subject holder. It's at a nice little angle. The two clips are holding it sort of flexed a little bit, which is really tricky to do without a piece of equipment like this, because these wires tend to want to flex back to their natural position and move around quite a lot. So having the macro subject holder here to hold it perfectly still and perfectly in the exact sort of angle of bend that I want is really handy. Speaking of that angle, it reacts really nicely to the green lighting arm that I just plugged in. I've brought that lighting arm round, and it's actually shining in through the bottom of the coil, so it's going through the middle where the big sort of hole is, for lack of a better word. The light then is shining out of the gaps in between each coil. I think this looks absolutely incredible up close. The magnification that we're getting from that reverse lens setup gets us really, really close, and it all comes together to create this abstract image, which I think fools the eye a little bit. I think if you were to show this to somebody that didn't already know what it is, they would be wondering whether or not this is some sort of organic object or subject, maybe some sort of snake coiled up, or some alien artifact with light emanating from within. And it's that light that's really, really interesting. As it's coming out from in between each of these coils, it's creating a nice little glow from the inside, which is really rare to see if you haven't deliberately caused it by using an external light source like this. Now, the green, I think, works really well for this particular subject. It does make you think of snakes and things like that, perhaps alien snakes. It does look like some sort of giant alien creature, but I have a lot of other colors to try, and I think that the different flexes and the different camera positions that we can do with this setup is going to create a huge amount of variety in our different shots. So I'm going to grab some different colors. I'm going to move all of this around just a little bit and see what different angles and different colors do to our shot. So obviously our green looked really interesting, but I've also tried the amber, the red and the blue lighting arm as well, and I think it's really interesting to see how a change of color can completely change the feel and look of your image and invoke sort of different feelings and well, connections to what this thing might be. I've already mentioned that green makes it look almost alien or organic, but the red and amber lighting arms from within make it look like there's some sort of fire brewing in there and spilling out of the coil. And the blue, I think, invokes sort of space feels. You see lots of blue lights out in space and spaceships and things like that, maybe underwater as well. So each of these different colors can invoke some really interesting different approaches to this macro subject. Obviously, it's just a coil of wire, but adding that extra color and the light coming from within can completely change that and make it feel a little bit otherworldly in one way or another. One of the most important things that I think we need to discuss when lighting something like this in an abstract way is actually not going overboard with your lighting. Obviously, the Control Pod 3 can mount 5 lighting arms in it at once, and the Pod Minis just have 1 each. And I think there's actually an advantage to using the Pod Mini here. There's a temptation with using the Pod 3 to load up all of those lighting arms and try multiple lights all at once and see what happens. And I wouldn't discourage that, but I do think that you'll find that just using 1 lighting arm at a time really adds to the dramatic feel of these images. Having light just coming from a single direction adds a lot of shadow and a lot of contrast into your images. Not everything needs to be completely fully lit, and you can have some highlights and some lowlights in different places, and that adds to this mysterious feel of the coil. Another aspect of these wires that we've not spoken about yet is texture. The keyboard wire is braided, so it's got this sort of textile feel to it, and it's not very reflective, but you can see all of the detail of how it's sort of braided together in the texture of those close-up images. My phone wire, though, I'm sure some of you will be familiar with the texture that these old phone wires have. Is a very plasticky, sort of is like a luster effect on it. It's not very reflective, reflective, but it's certainly got a little bit more shine to it. It's also tighter. It's much more small in its diameter in the middle there, so there's going to be much bigger gaps as we flex it around. It's actually a lot longer and more flexible, so I wonder if we can't get a few of these different curves together and create some more complex images using this wire as well. As it turns out, something as simple as a coiled piece of wire can turn into a really interesting abstract macro shoot if you go about it in the right way. I'd certainly recommend using that single light source technique and using those colors to create a little bit of mystique and intrigue around what your image might be of. Lighting things from within is definitely a great way to grab the interest of the viewer. Trying to figure out where the light is coming from and why is always a great way to just make your images stand out a little bit more than just conventionally lighting things from the outside. I think we could all agree that a simple photograph of a coiled piece of wire would not be the same if it weren't for that light leaking out from the gaps in between each coil. I'd like to know from you guys what you think to today's shoot. Did you enjoy my images? Let me know down in the comment section and hit the like button while you're down there. It really helps us out. Hit subscribe for more macro photography ideas, inspiration and tutorials coming in the future. But for now, that is all that I've got time for. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.